The richest man alive, the woman who commands every spotlight, a wedding draped in diamonds and secrets. Was it love? Or was it power? The story begins not with flashing cameras or breaking headlines, but with a single reel of security footage that would later be called the most expensive piece of evidence in legal history. 23 seconds of grainy surveillance showing a woman in a glittering $50,000 gown walking away from the richest man on earth. An opened envelope clutched in her perfectly manicured hands. This moment would not remain private for long. It would ignite a chain reaction of whispers, headlines, depositions, and courtroom drama that would ripple across continents. But to truly understand the meaning of those seconds, we must go back to when Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez still believed their fairy tale was only beginning. The wedding had been flawless. Maui offered its black volcanic shores as the perfect backdrop. Orchids from Thailand swayed in Pacific breezes as a string quartet played melodies that floated above crashing waves. Hollywood royalty mingled effortlessly with Silicon Valley titans, while old-world aristocrats sipped champagne beneath a canopy of fairy lights. The guest list itself read like a Davos seating chart. Each invitation more than just hospitality, each name chosen like a chess piece in a game. Of power. Jeff Bezos stood at the altar not only as a groom, but as a conqueror, a man who had won at everything from e-commerce to space, and now loved Lauren Sánchez, radiant in her custom Valentino gown, glided down the aisle like a newly crowned queen approaching her throne. Photographers captured every angle, and soon the images flooded social feeds. Headlines gushed superlatives, and for one collective moment, the world sighed together. This was billionaire romance at its absolute peak. But fairy tales, even ones built on billions, do not always survive the honeymoon. The first cracks in this picture, perfect union did not appear with scandalous headlines or explosive fights. They appeared quietly, with financial control and shifting boundaries. It began almost invisibly. Jeff accepted fewer social invitations. His team quietly rerouted spending channels. There were whispers of boundaries being set, rules written not in conversation, but in quiet acts of control for most couples. These adjustments might seem small, but for Lauren, who had lived her life at maximum volume, the changes felt seismic for Lauren. Luxury was not indulgence. It was rhythm, the rhythm of her existence. Rodeo Drive clerks knew her coffee order fashion. Houses placed her front row without being asked. Spontaneous trips to Paris were calendar staples, not exceptions. This was not extravagance to her. This was identity amplified further by the relentless gaze of social media. Her image as the billionaire bride with an appetite for spectacle became its own narrative. Yet, according to sources close to Bezos, that very narrative began to feel less like celebration and more like liability. The breaking point came on what should have been a routine evening. A dinner in Malibu with Hollywood power brokers, text kingmakers, and cultural gatekeepers. Cameras captured smiles and polite gestures. But the car ride home was Arctic silence inside their Beverly Hills. Sanctuary, candles flickered, but the air was heavy. Lauren demanded answers. Why were her transactions being blocked? Why the humiliation? Bezos responded not with anger, but with ironclad certainty. There would be boundaries. Now and then came the envelope. The envelope delivered not only financial restriction, but an unmistakable message. According to insiders who later testified in closed depositions, the document inside outlined a restructuring of her personal spending allowance. Unlimited access would be reduced to a monthly allocation, enormous by normal standards, but a leash by the scale of their world. It categorized spending-approved items, required signatures. In short, it treated Lauren not as a partner, but as a subsidiary. The richest man on earth had just handed his new wife what read like a corporate memo on personal conduct. The household shifted instantly. Staff whispered about raised voices echoing through marble halls, Bezos retreating to his private study lined with rare books, and silence. Lauren locking herself in the guest wing master suite, two kingdoms under one roof, each pulsing with barely contained fury. What began as a financial adjustment spiraled into an identity crisis for Lauren. This was more than insult. This was devastation, because Lauren was not a nameless socialite plucked from obscurity. She had built her own career long before Jeff entered her orbit. She was a respected media personality, a helicopter pilot who navigated Los Angeles skies while reporting breaking news. her skills. In aviation were legendary, she had carved her own place in Hollywood's ruthless ecosystem. She had earned recognition in cutthroat industries where reputation mattered when the envelope reduced her to a cost center. It cut deeper than any financial figure. It questioned her independence, her worth, her identity. The fallout spread quickly through their elite social ecosystem. Whispers traveled from Malibu beach clubs where membership cost more than most homes to penthouses overlooking Central. Park each dinner party became an intelligence-gathering mission. Each conversation dissected for clues. Was this a temporary adjustment, or was the most powerful marriage in the world already fracturing? Even before its first year, the whispers became more refined with time. Private equity titans exchanged concerns on golf courses. Venture capital partners shared glances at fundraisers. European aristocrats speculated in multiple languages. During charity galas, the narrative was forming. Jeff and Lauren were not aligned, and every observer knew the implications were enormous. The ripple effects reached luxury industries. First, art dealers suddenly saw their calls to Lauren, unreturned travel consultants lost seven-figure bookings. Personal. Shoppers reported declined cards. Boutiques whispered that the billionaire bride was suddenly constrained. Even charities felt the chill Lauren, who had been building her own philanthropic identity with a focus on education and women's empowerment. Suddenly postponed meetings, canceled pledges, and retreated from visibility. The media seized its moment. Entertainment Tonight analyzed their body language on red carpets. Forbes and Fortune questioned if personal turmoil might affect Bezos' focus. On Amazon or Blue Origin, the Wall Street Journal assigned investigative reporters to track the potential market consequences. A high-profile divorce could mean billions in movement across markets. Social media devoured every update. The hashtag BezosGate trended worldwide. Memes mocked the richest man alive for setting a household budget. TikTok creators dissected mismatched clothing choices as signs of discord. Instagram gossip accounts exploded with new followers. Everyone wanted a piece of the story. Even LinkedIn buzzed with speculation about what marital instability could mean for contracts, investments, and succession planning. But beyond mockery, real fractures emerged in their high society. Network invitations grew selective. Social circles calculated risks. Friendships faded. The Hamptons summer scene, once dominated by Lauren, turned cold. Conversations stopped when she entered rooms. Posts featuring her vanished from friends. Feeds, country clubs turned into arenas of subtle humiliation. Golf partners backed out tennis matches. Rescheduled. Even charitable board offers were rescinded with vague excuses. Attempts at reconciliation were elaborate but futile. Friends organized weekends in Aspen and Martha's Vineyard. Private jets carried them to retreats, where celebrity counselors charged thousands per hour. Marriage retreats at spas, designed for ultra-high net worth couples, were scheduled. Yet the tension followed them everywhere. Insiders reported the electricity between them could not be extinguished by candlelit dinners, or mountain views, or even expert mediation. The incompatibility had crystallized. Psychological assessments confirmed what insiders suspected. Lauren was driven by visibility, recognition, influence. She built her identity on public achievement. Jeff was driven by control, calculation, strategy, risk management. Their worldviews were not simply different, they were opposed. Fashion magazines that once celebrated Lauren's daring style reframed her as a cautionary tale. Business outlets openly worried if Bezos' personal turbulence might destabilize. Amazon investors began factoring relationship drama into reports. Algorithms even tied stock fluctuations to negative headlines. Succession planning was whispered about by institutions. Climate fund partners grew nervous. Blue Origin collaborators drafted contingencies. Philanthropy circles feared disruption. What began with an envelope now sent tendrils of concern across markets, governments, charities, and boardrooms worldwide. Yet for Lauren, the wound was personal, not strategic. She felt trapped in a gilded cage, stripped of autonomy, unable to make even ordinary choices without judgment from advisors or financial managers who had never earned the right to govern her. The restrictions were never about money. They were about power and perception. And for Lauren, reputation was currency. The slow humiliation was unbearable. Friends noticed her, sleep disrupted, her confidence shaken her. Once vibrant public presence subdued, she hesitated before every purchase, every event, calculating reputational cost. The envelope had not just introduced boundaries, it had created a spectacle, and in her world, perception was everything. And then came the footage, those 23 seconds. The cameras captured more than a woman in a gown walking away. They captured the precise instant when private conflict became public catastrophe, when love at the pinnacle of wealth revealed its true. The footage leaked by a disgruntled employee who vanished to an unknown destination sold for an undisclosed sum, showed Lauren walking not just away from a husband, but toward a storm of legal and media fire. Those seconds would be replayed, dissected, debated, and remembered as the spark that set empires trembling. Queens may serve at the pleasure of kings in the kingdom of billions, but some queens refuse to serve at all. The footage spread like wildfire. Tabloids paid fortunes to secure copies. Television producers aired grainy stills alongside dramatic headlines, and commentators declared it the moment billionaire romance collapsed. The image of Lauren in her gown envelope in hand became a symbol, and symbols in Hollywood take on lives of their own. What began as a private disagreement over money became a global spectacle dissected in living rooms, trading floors and political offices alike. Investigators who would later testify in closed courtrooms confirmed that the envelope contained more than financial limits. It was drafted by legal advisors, financial planners, and image consultants. It read like a restructuring proposal of a corporation rather than a message to a spouse. To Lauren, it was a declaration that her role had shifted from partner to liability. The richest man in the world had put his own wife on an allowance. The reactions across elite circles were immediate and brutal, because perception in those rarefied worlds can be more powerful than reality. In Malibu, the whispers grew sharper. Members of private beach clubs speculated not about love, but about leverage. In New York penthouses overlooking Central Park, conversations centered on what this meant for Jeff as a leader. Could a man who allowed his marriage to falter still be trusted to guide the world's most valuable company in Europe? Aristocrats with centuries of lineage murmured at charity galas about the humiliation of public restriction imposed on a woman known for her independence. Luxury markets trembled. Boutiques that once celebrated Lauren as their muse now whispered about declined cards. Personal shoppers shared quiet anecdotes about blocked purchases. Every story reinforced the same narrative that Lauren, once untouchable, was suddenly under watchful control. Art dealers withdrew proposals, fearing unpaid invoices. Travel consultants who managed private island escapes watched seven-figure bookings disappear. Even charities began to retreat. Meetings were postponed, pledges placed on hold. Lauren's philanthropic identity dimmed under the shadow of her husband's. Restrictions. The media ecosystem shifted with predator-like efficiency entertainment. Outlets reframed the couple not as a fairy tale, but as a case study of control. Forbes, Fortune, and Bloomberg debated the effect on Amazon investors. The Wall Street Journal ran deep dives into possible implications for Blue Origin space missions. Business Insiders wrote long analyses treating personal drama as market risk. Memes on social media mocked Jeff as the richest man with the cheapest rules. TikTokers dissected their body language. Hashtags exploded into millions of posts. Reddit threads treated the saga like a global reality show. But the most dangerous shift was among their inner circle allies, who once clamored for proximity began calculating risks. Country club partners who once invited Lauren to glamorous weekends suddenly went silent. Board invitations were rescinded. Charitable honors delayed. Phone calls, unanswered social media posts erased like she had never been there. Proximity to power had become proximity to scandal, and no one in that stratosphere risked contamination. Attempts to repair where elaborate private jets whisked them to mountain retreats in Aspen. Neutral territory. Friends believed distance from paparazzi might heal tension. Celebrity counselors arrived, charging thousands an hour. Leading sessions designed for the elite mountain spas promised transformation. Candlelit dinners overlooking snow-capped peaks were staged, yet insiders reported the tension never left the room wherever they went. Silence followed like a shadow. Psychological evaluations conducted discreetly revealed what no retreat could fix. Lauren craved recognition, visibility, identity through public achievement. She built her image on social influence and independent success. Jeff viewed life through strategic calculation, risk, and control. For him, every connection, every relationship, every partnership was a balance sheet. Their assessments confirmed these worldviews were fundamentally opposed, not simply different but irreconcilable. Meanwhile, global systems began to shake. Amazon analysts monitored headlines and stock charts. Algorithms detected correlations between their personal drama and share prices. Institutional investors quietly asked about succession planning. Blue Origin partners in Europe and Asia drafted contingency plans. Philanthropy groups hesitated, fearing that pledges tied to the couple might vanish. Governments invested in climate projects, wondered if the Earth Fund would collapse under personal chaos. The footage had become more than gossip. It had become evidence analysts debated its meaning. Legal experts speculated on contractual consequences. Financial journalists wrote as if the envelope itself were a policy document. The richest man in the world was now judged not by innovation or business vision, but by the humiliation unfolding in his home. Yet the core wound for Lauren remained deeply personal. Not corporate friends described her pacing through marble hallways, clutching her phone, calculating reputational costs before. Every action, her independence once unshakable, had been transformed into hesitation. Her vibrant energy dulled. She no longer dominated rooms. Instead, she hesitated, unsure whether allies remained or had already drifted away by the second month after. The envelope insiders say two kingdoms existed within their mansion. Lauren in one wing, Jeff in another, staff divided into camps, some loyal to her, some to him. Whispers echoed through kitchens and studies. Rumors trickled out to friends who fed them to reporters. Every detail magnified, every silence recorded, every absence dissected. The envelope had not just created rules, it had created a battlefield. The media storm intensified fashion magazines that once crowned Lauren Queen of Daring. Style reframed her as tragic figure, cautioning against excess. Business outlets asked if Jeff could focus on innovation amid turmoil. Markets responded with volatility. Climate partners worried philanthropic commitments would collapse, even Washington. Post staff quietly speculated whether their owners' private implosion would affect editorial direction. Social media fueled the spectacle. Hashtags multiplied, memes evolved into viral trends. Influencers built content careers on dissecting the saga. Ordinary followers debated power control and marriage in the age of billions. Lauren became both symbol and cautionary tale. Jeff became both titan and punchline. Elite society grew colder. Invitations, fewer conversations clipped in the Hamptons. Lauren, once center of attention, now faced silence. Golf matches canceled tennis partners. Unavailable parties suddenly exclusive. Without her country club chatter reframed her from queen to outsider. It was exile by whispers, exile without formal. Announcement exile delivered through absence. Friends attempted interventions, carefully arranged weekends in Martha's Vineyard dinners. With mutual confidants, celebrity counselors flown from California to Switzerland. Yet none of it changed the trajectory. The incompatibility had crystallized attempts only highlighted futility. Jeff remained controlled, strategic, silent. Lauren remained visible, craving autonomy, recognition. Their paths diverged, each attempt widening the distance. And so the envelope became not just paper, but symbol. A turning point recognized worldwide in courts. It would later be treated as evidence in media, as spectacle in society, as scandal in markets, as risk. But for Lauren, it remained a wound, a reminder that in her world, perception is power, and her perception had been reshaped by 23 seconds of footage that never should have existed. The wedding may have been sealed in Venice with luxury and spectacle, but the true story only began after the vows, because marriage at this scale is not just about love, it is about alliances, power, and the kind of influence that bends industries and governments alike. Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez stepped into a new chapter, one framed not by intimacy alone, but by the kind of scrutiny that only the world's wealthiest couple can summon. And what followed was as telling as the event itself. The first thing people noticed was the calculated silence. After the ceremony, there were no official interviews, no joint statements, no carefully orchestrated press tours. Instead, there was an orchestrated drip feed of images one day. Lauren in diamonds. Another Jeff on the yacht smiling with world leaders. Each photo looked natural but felt deliberate, like every angle had been weighed by a team of strategists before release, because this was not just about capturing moments, it was about curating. A narrative, one that would protect them from the whispers already gathering at the edges. those whispers spoke of unease, the kind that money cannot fully mask. People inside their circles began to notice subtle things. Jeff more guarded in public, Lauren more commanding in private. The balance of power between them was shifting, and the shift was visible to those who knew where to look. Jeff, once the man who set the pace, was now often seen adjusting to Lauren's rhythm at galas and dinners. Lauren led conversations, she pulled people in with her charisma, and Jeff followed, smiling. Always smiling, but never with the effortless joy of his earlier days. The difference was subtle but undeniable. And then there were the family dynamics, Jeff's. Children, polite, supportive, but always maintaining a quiet distance. Lauren's family, meanwhile, leaned into the spotlight, appearing in society pages and being linked to projects with curious timing. Some called it coincidence, others saw strategy. Every connection, every invitation carried weight in a world where even seating arrangements at charity galas can signal alliances. The blending of their families was more than a personal milestone. It was a chessboard where each move could redefine. Influence. The public, meanwhile, was distracted by the extravagance, the yachts, the diamonds, the appearances at global summits. Every outing was another headline, every dress another column inch. Yet beneath the glamour, the core question remained: was this union purely personal, or was it the creation of a new empire, one where love and power were indistinguishable? And if so, who was truly in control? Jeff with his empire of commerce and space, or Lauren with her mastery of image and access? Insiders began to murmur about Lauren's growing influence on Blue Origin decisions about which events Jeff should attend, about the media outlets that received exclusives. What once might have been handled by longtime advisors was now often filtered. Through Lauren's lens, she was not merely a partner. She was an architect, quietly reshaping the public face of one of the most powerful men alive. And in doing so, she was rewriting her own legacy from media personality to power player, but with influence comes enemies, and those enemies began to stir. The first cracks appeared in the form of critical editorials questioning the scale of the Venice wedding. The spending, the symbolism at a time when inequality was at record highs. Was it wise for the world's richest man to flaunt excess on such a stage? Was it love or performance? Art? Was it joy or arrogance? The questions were sharp, and though they rarely named Lauren directly, she was the constant presence in the accompanying photographs, her smile becoming a lightning rod for commentary. And as scrutiny grew, so too did the pressure on Jeff. His public appearances grew shorter, his smiles thinner. The contrast with earlier years could not be ignored. Photographs from 2019 showed a man radiating ease, laughter spilling naturally. Yet in 2024, the same events, the same stages showed something else: restraint, calculation, as though every expression had to be weighed before release. The joy seemed rehearsed, and observers began to ask quietly what had changed. Was it simply the weight of wealth, the price of global power, or was there something within the marriage itself? Some tension invisible to cameras but felt in the air. Those who attended the post-wedding gatherings spoke in hushed tones of conversations cut short of moments where Lauren's laughter filled the room while Jeff lingered on the sidelines, nodding politely. The balance was shifting again, and people wondered how long such a dynamic could sustain under the blinding spotlight of global attention. The story of Jeff and Lauren was no longer just about love. It was about the transformation of two lives into one empire. An empire that glittered on the surface, but beneath carried the fractures of ambition, family, and power. Their Venice wedding was not the conclusion, it was the opening act, and as the afterglow faded, the shadows only grew darker.